The last few days in AI have been kind of insane. Basically, every major lab dropped something huge, governments are freaking out about power and money, and even presidents are posting cursed AI art. So first up, Anthropic just quietly dropped what might be its most dangerous product, but not dangerous like Doom, dangerous like Figma and Canva should not be sleeping well. They launched something called Claude Design, and the idea is super simple but kind of crazy. You type what you want, a landing page, a pitch deck, a product UI, whatever, and it just spits out a polished design with layouts, components, slides, all done. Now here's the thing, this isn't just a cute toy layered on top of a chatbot. Claude Design is powered by Claude Opus 4.7, Anthropic's newest vision model, their most capable model that can see images at higher resolution and supposedly understands aesthetics well enough to generate tasteful and creative professional work. So basically, in the old world, you had design tools like Figma and Adobe that humans operated, and language models that just wrote text. Now Anthropic is saying, what if the model understands your product, your design system, and just drafts the whole thing? And remember what I said earlier about the labs trying to move up the stack? Anthropic isn't just shipping models anymore. Reports say they're turning into a full-stack product company, going from we give you an API to we own your creative workflow, with revenue jumping into the tens of billions annualized. So let's talk about why that matters. If your AI assistant can already code, and now it can also design your slides, landing pages, and product mockups, the bottleneck shifts from can we build it to can we decide what we actually want. That's a different kind of job. Now, on the complete other side of the spectrum, OpenAI just launched a model that doesn't care about pitch decks at all. It cares about proteins, DNA, and drug pipelines. It's called GPT Rosalind, named after Rosalind Franklin, the scientist whose work helped uncover the structure of DNA. And it's built specifically for life sciences, biology, drug discovery, translational medicine. Basically, imagine ChatGPT, but instead of write me a YouTube title, it's doing literature reviews over thousands of biomedical papers, brainstorming hypotheses for new drug targets, planning experiments, and wiring together tools and databases used in real labs. This isn't a public free-for-all model. OpenAI's releasing it as a research preview through ChatGPT, Codex, and their API, but only for vetted, trusted access partners. Amgen, Moderna, Thermo Fisher, the Allen Institute, Novo Nordisk, and so on. Now here's why that's interesting. We keep talking about AI replacing copywriters and coders, and that's real. But GPT Rosalind is aimed at compressing 10 to 15 years of drug development cycles into something faster and more parallel. So instead of AI writes your email, this is AI helps design your cancer drug. If you've made it this far, you clearly care about where AI is really heading. So go ahead and hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to stay in the loop. So, zooming out from individual models, Stanford just dropped its AI Index 2026, and there's one chart in there that everyone in policy land is freaking out about. The headline, "The US-China AI performance gap has basically closed." For years, the narrative was, the US is miles ahead on frontier models, China is catching up eventually. According to the new report, that eventually moment basically already happened. As of March 2026, the top US model from Anthropic is only ahead of the top Chinese model by about 2.7% on a key aggregate scoreboard. And since 2025, the top spot has been bouncing back and forth between US and Chinese labs. Now here's the contrast. The US still leads in private investment, number of frontier models, and high-impact patents. But China leads in paper volume, citations, patent output overall, and industrial robot installations. In other words, America still spends more and hosts more of the biggest data centers, but performance at the model level is almost neck and neck. And China is already ahead on a lot of the real economy indicators. If you remember what we said in earlier stories about infrastructure and regulation, this is the backdrop. While everyone is obsessing over OpenAI and Anthropic, Meta quietly rolled out a new flagship model called Muse Spark. According to the New York Times, this is the first big model coming out of Meta's restructured superintelligence division, the group Mark Zuckerberg has been pouring billions into so he doesn't get left behind in the model race. Think of it as Meta's answer to the latest GPTs and Claudes. Where earlier Llama models were often positioned as open-weight building blocks, Muse Spark looks more like a full-blown flagship that Meta wants to wire into everything: Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, hardware, and their long-term metaverse play. Here's the contrast. OpenAI is leaning into specialized verticals like biology. Anthropic is leaning into workflow tools like Claude Design. Meta is leaning into distribution, putting a powerful model into billions of feeds and chats. So if earlier the question was who has the best benchmark, now the question is shifting towards who controls the interface where people actually use this stuff. Okay? Now let's go dark for a second. Anthropic has another model in the news, Mythos. On paper, it's their most advanced model for coding and autonomous tasks, great for building software, automating workflows, all that. But Reuters just published a piece where cybersecurity experts basically say, if you point Mythos at the wrong target, like a bank running 30-year-old software glued to modern cloud tools, you can find insanely complex vulnerabilities way faster than before. Banks are a perfect storm, tons of legacy systems, patched-on compliance tools, and many of them use the same vendors and platforms, which means a single Mythos-assisted exploit might not stay contained to one institution. So the contrast here is really stark. GPT Rosalind tries to accelerate medicine. Mythos, used recklessly, accelerates attack surface discovery against critical financial infrastructure. And this is why people keep saying AI is both shield and sword. The same capabilities that help you audit your code can help someone else tear through the global banking system if guardrails and access controls are weak. Now let's follow the money into the hardware layer. Two of the most important companies in the AI supply chain, TSMC and ASML, just told investors, yeah, the AI chip boom is very real and it's not slowing down. TSMC raised its revenue outlook and said demand for AI chips is exceptionally robust, with cloud giants locking in long-term capacity contracts so they don't get squeezed out of the front of the line. ASML, which makes the extreme ultraviolet lithography machines you literally need to print cutting-edge chips, also raised its forecast. So remember when people said the AI boom might be a short hype cycle? Speaking of build-out, OpenAI is now planting a much bigger flag in Europe. They've announced their first permanent London office, set to open in 2027, and it's not a tiny outpost. The site in King's Cross is designed for about 544 employees across research, engineering, policy, customer, and sales. Right now, they already have around 200 people in London. This new campus is them saying, we're not just an API company in San Francisco, we're a global research organization. The twist? Just a week earlier, they paused a major UK data center project because of regulatory and energy concerns. So on one hand, they're doubling down on talent in London. Now, on the culture side, AI just gave us one of the strangest political images of the year. On April 12th, President Donald Trump posted an AI-generated image of himself on Truth Social, dressed in a white robe, holding a glowing orb, and touching the head of a sick person, with the Statue of Liberty, jets, fireworks, and eagles in the background. People immediately said, okay, that looks like Jesus Trump fan art. Even some of his usual religious supporters were not happy on Cybersecurity, to the point where the image was taken down the next day. Trump later claimed reporters were overreacting and said it was just meant to show him as a doctor and healer, not as a Christ-like figure. Finally, let's stitch everything together with the macro story, money, and infrastructure. According to Crunchbase, Q1 2026 saw about $300 billion invested into startups, and AI absolutely dominated that number. Just four companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, XAI, and Waymo, pulled in around $188 billion combined, which is about two-thirds of all global venture funding that quarter. At the same time, Reuters Breaking Views points out that announced AI data center projects in the US and Europe now represent roughly 110 gigawatts of planned capacity. Think dozens and dozens of massive, power-hungry sites. Depending on how you estimate cost per gigawatt, that points toward a multi-trillion-dollar build-out. And the U.S. Energy Information Administration says U.S. power demand is expected to hit record highs in 2026 and 2027. With AI and crypto data centers as major drivers, even as coal's share falls and renewables rise. So yeah, that is it for this week's AI News. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care and bye for now.